Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Nancy Drew. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously things are getting more intricate in this case because obviously Nancy's looking at things like, okay, so Lucy and Ryan have a connection. I thought it was kind of interesting. She went over to Ryan's place and it's like, oh, his house is unlocked. That's weird. I did like that spooky thing of her walking past the water thing, and like in the image it shows Lucy walking beside her. It's like, oh, that's nice and creepy. But as she ends up going back home, and lo and behold, who does she find there? Ryan, because Ryan's thinking that someone's trying to kill him, which is interesting timing just because of like all that Nancy's trying to do. And so Nancy's trying to ask a question because she ends up finding out that this is all connected to that secret club or whatever that Karen had mentioned that Lucy went to. It is the Velvet Mask, and she's trying to get Ryan to get her an invitation here because she tried to go through Owen, but Owen does. And the thing is, Owen cares about Nancy, so he doesn't, because it's like he knows that world of the rich, the 1%ers, you know, just like what their world kind of entails and what they'll basically do to anyone just, you know, who, you know, steps out of line and enters their world. They'll crush anybody. So obviously he doesn't want Nancy involved, so he doesn't kind of offer her a helping hand. It is a complicated thing of like there is almost this little flirtatious relationship, like so far that's kind of been established between Nancy and Owen, which that plays a big part in everything. It's kind of going forward, but we'll get to that soon enough. But Ryan is trying to collect these 12 coins. They're like these Roman coins that basically he owes a lot of people money. It's like what dangerous people he owes. Maybe it's like, I guess it's people connected to business ventures. Like, oh, I take your money and I'm going to invest it in this thing. Because remember last episode, the whole thing with Owen, where he's like, oh, we had that dealing. But Owen was like, nah, the last dealings you had basically sank. He sank someone else's money. He was trying to get money from Owen so he could pay those people off to get them off his back. But then you would have owed Owen money. But I guess he thought maybe like, oh, I got this venture where I can get a whole bunch of money, take your money, kind of double, triple, quadruple, pay them off and also pay you off for your investment and stuff like that and give you a little more off on the side. So I think that was probably his plan. But after the whole George kissing him last episode thing, which I didn't realize anyone saw. I mean, they didn't make a point of anyone seeing, but it's like, no, it turns out his dad Everett saw, so he's cutting him off. So that's turned into a thing. So that's why he's desperate now. But he's like, okay, Nancy's like, okay, if I steal these coins for you, he's like, when have you broken into anywhere? And she's thinking in her head, she's like, well, I broke into your place like 2 weeks ago, which I think immediately I'm like, oh, but you also didn't think about the fact that, well, you did break into the morgue, but I guess that situation was a little different because it doesn't count as well because she didn't get away scot-free. She got caught due to complications, but I guess that's why. I mean, technically, she still got caught with breaking into Ryan's place because Karen ended up finding her beanie, and her dad ended up confronting her about it. Well, they both ended up confronting her about it. So, but I guess that's more why she didn't bring up the whole morgue situation. But even Ryan was like, you know what? I don't even want to know. I'm not even going to ask. But can you get these coins for him? I wish we could have actually seen the break in, but it's like, nah, she just got it. I guess it's just like Nancy got with the coins scot-free. Now that's complicated though, because it's interesting too, because I feel like this is our first time seeing George and Nick kind of really hang out together. So obviously they're doing their investigation side of things. They're looking into all the stuff that Tiffany was looking into. And it turns out this is all connected to said coins. Well, they were interested to find out, wait, what? Nancy, you got Ryan in your place? It's like, okay, I'm telling you that basically Ryan might be connected to two murders, not just Tiffany's, but Lucy's. And then George is like, oh, the fact of the matter is there's even more reasoning. Wait, what? So it's like, oh, you trying to outdo me because, oh, you're being haunted by Lucy first. I get possessed. Now you want to outdo me. But then it's the whole thing of like, nah, this has been happening for a while. I just haven't told anyone, which even Nick's taking it personal. It's like, wait, what? Because he's trying to act like he's 100% okay with her going off meeting up with Owen Marvin and, you know, the whole thing of like, nah, you know, I'm good. I'm secure in where we stand and everything. Obviously, last episode, you can tell that kind of bothered him a little bit, but obviously he's trying to play it cool, trying to probably not be like the jealous type or whatever. But obviously it does heavily bother him. But he's like, why didn't you tell me? And, you know, and that's a constant thing throughout the episode. And he's even something George tries to make him feel better about, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, this is who Nancy is. Oh, you're mad because she's like very one-sided minded when it comes to this. It's like, that's who she is. She's always been like that. And she keeps walls up around herself. I think that's something that's always been there. It probably got worse after her mom died. But for him, it's like, especially because she knows how important Tiffany's murder is to him solving it, and it's like these coins could be proof, because it turns out this all connects to a boat that had crashed, that basically it turns out it was a Marvin and Hudson collaboration. And on that same boat is where Owen's uncle Sebastian died, which I personally thought was kind of interesting. Oh, your uncle Sebastian was the Kraken. Just because in my mind, when I think Sebastian, I immediately think of Little Mermaid. I'm sure it's not that, because obviously there are Sebastians. There's the Sebastian from Revolution. There's Sebastian Stan, the actor, played Bucky, Winter Soldier, in the MCU. The nerd that I am, know him best as that. But regardless, going on a bit of a tangent. But my mind immediately also associates it with, I just thought it was kind of funny. Sebastian under the sea, and it's like, oh, here's a Kraken, which is connected to the sea. You get what I'm trying to say. If you want to really dig even deeper, you can think about it as like, well, Little Mermaid's a Disney property. The Kraken pops up in Pirates of the Caribbean, which is a Disney property too. So it's just, you want to think about it too much. Once again, me and my tangents, aren't they lovely? But the coins could be proof that like the Hudsons had that ship go down because they were trying to steal the coins themselves, because those coins should be at the bottom of the sea, yet the Hudsons have it. And now it turns into a thing of like, well, why would Ryan be selling them if there's such history to it? It's because his family hasn't told him all their dark secrets. I think he's slightly aware of like some of the dark secrets his family has, but not all of them, and that being one of them. So it's like he's selling these coins. Then even later on, his mom shows up like, no, give me the coins. I'll tell your dad that you've learned your lesson. And Ryan never gave her back the coin. So it's like she was kind of hoping for like, her son to kind of be obedient or whatever. It's like, oh, you even missed my, my wife's funeral. I was like, oh, I got caught up, and part of me wonders, is that true? Was it really that, or were there other circumstances? Because obviously, like, the dad doesn't think much of the relationship. He was like, oh, the only good thing that could have came out of this sham of a relationship is which is interesting, because it turns out she's a Tandy, which Tandys hold a lot of weight in this, town or whatever. Like, it seems like they're a prominent family, much like the Marvins or the Hudsons, but it seemed like she was almost treated like a townsy, like, oh, she was but maybe it's because her money comes a little differently. Maybe it's because like her money, maybe the Tandy family, their money is new money. It's probably kind of a Great Gatsby thing of like new money versus old money. And the Hudsons and the Marvins are old money, whereas, the Tandys might be new money. So it might be that type of circumstance, but, or maybe they're more townsy, like rich people, whereas the Hudsons and the Marvins kind of go beyond just, what's the town called? Ain't it called like Seahorse Bay or whatever? So maybe not. Either way. So maybe how, Ryan's dad feels is also how his mom feels. So about the whole circumstance, but we'll kind of circle back to that soon enough. But I think, because what a good message, and I think an interesting message that this episode sends across, is the fact is that Nancy has a hard time opening up to people. I think it's because it stems from the fact is that she has always been this investigator, and she's always been a solo act, and that's something she's kind of having to get readjusted to, because like, oh, I'm at to work with a team, but she's still not to the point she's willing to talk to anybody. It's like something as simple as like, yeah, like what George is going through, I kind of get it. Even though she had her reservations, at any point in time she could have been like, all right, I believe George and all of this stuff, because yeah, it's kind of happening to me, but she didn't tell anyone about it. She didn't confide in him. And so it's like, are we even a team? Like, because at first everyone was suspects, but now she's basically cleared everyone. So no one's like, wait, you're still not going to trust us. But for her trust is hard earned, because I think in her mind, it's just kind of like, it's like, people, in a sad way, it's almost like people kind of get in the way. So I'm better at doing stuff on my own. So I don't want other people involved. I guess that's one, a very sad way you can look at the situation. But I just think it's just kind of fascinating seeing that aspect kind of driven home. And even Nick, kind of feeling like he's being pushed to the outside. And I think maybe even Nancy doesn't even recognize that she's doing that. It is probably kind of like a subconscious thing. But nevertheless, everyone manages to find their way to the party. Obviously, Nancy gets there through Ryan. Everyone else, whether, George, Nick, and I'm blanking. Bess, geez, I had a brain fart. Which obviously there's a whole her and Elizabeth situation. It was kind of adorable, her kind of freaking out. Like, we were supposed to go here, and it's like, oh, that's a pretty nice place. Well, apparently not, because Elizabeth just responded as, okay. If it was like, oh, this is great or yum, and she's freaking out, and even, I love like Ace being there to kind of like be her, her date advisor, I guess is kind of how you could put it. I mean, he's up there kind of being like, because she's like, oh, you're talking to me like I've never been on many dates before. He's like, well, you haven't. She's like, that's not the point. The fact of the matter, he's like, okay, do some icebreakers. Just, be honest, but don't be aggressively honest. Don't bring up the fact is where you live, that you live in a van. The fact is, don't bring up the fact is you have a bit of a mild kleptomania, and don't bring up the fact is that your family and the whole complicated nature of that whole situation. So I was like, okay, so we'll leave it at that. So I do like that they do have their date, and it's like, go ahead, ask me anything. I'm an open book. So where do you live? And it's like, ooh, obviously Elizabeth has to leave, and it's like, okay, for her, she's like, I'll never smile again. But George is like, so how do you feel like wearing a pretty dress and stealing something? And Beth smiles, and it's like, there's that smile. I love that she immediately bounces back like, oh, we're gonna steal something? I didn't know your kleptomania kind of ran that deep, that even stealing something was pretty, that it will, I mean, to be fair, she likes shiny things, so she's already kind of made that clear. They make her feel better. But regardless, kind of catching up on that point, we kind of take the story going forward of just like, okay, so we learned some interesting developments. Obviously, Ryan, I left it off, but Ryan had made a point about his mom of like, I don't like the way you handle things. So it's like, okay, so immediately my brain thought like, oh, so I was thinking, because what was interesting, and I forgot to talk about this, was Lucy confronts Ryan. He sees her, which even Nancy sees the attack. It's like, whoa. So that was nuts. But a lot of interesting stuff gets revealed. Nancy ends up finding out the big, deep, dark secret that Lucy ended up finding out about, and that kind of got in the middle of what's the fact is that she found out that Ryan's mom and Sebastian, Owen's uncle, who obviously Ryan's dad, Everett, and Sebastian were rivals, so she was having an affair, which makes me wonder, is it going to be a twist where we find out that Everett is no, because Ryan was around at that time, but part of me still wonders, it could be a thing of like, Ryan might not actually even be Everett's, he might be Sebastian, so Sebastian and Ryan might be related, because I'm about to say, he was old enough at that point in time, because he brought Lucy and everything, so he's like, in his later years. So I'm like, okay, so it could still be a thing of who knows how long that affair was going. It could have been going on for a long time, but it is interesting, the timing and everything, because it's like, oh, Lucy died like a year after showing up at that party, and then a year after that, Sebastian died. So kind of cutting ties with everyone. That could have been Everett's way of getting revenge against the man. Like, oh, I know you're having an affair with my wife, and I'm gonna screw you and your entire family over. Maybe not. Because everyone wants the coins for different reasons. Obviously, it's a tie to prove that, like, hey, for George, for George, Bess, and Nick, it's about connecting this to Tiffany's murder, while Nancy's trying to figure out Lucy's murder. She's saying it's about Tiffany, but for her, it's like solving Lucy's murder is definitely going to solve Tiffany's murder. She didn't really know that, but it's like, she has this very personal connection to Lucy, so she wants to solve her murder. I think it's just the detective in her is like, no, I got to figure out this mystery. It's a bigger mystery. Maybe it almost felt like Tiffany was kind of being pushed to the wayside because, well, she is being still haunted by Lucy's ghost, so I think it takes a little more precedence in a certain sense, but Owen wants it because this is proof of, his family being screwed over and the justice, because there was like people who died on that ship. It was like 12 people, so it's like the Hudsons might be connected to those murders as well. And once again, that thing of Nancy not telling Nick and explaining everything. And obviously their attempt to steal the coins didn't go too well because obviously Bess was a little too busy. Did her and Elizabeth even actually kiss? I know they were about to. I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, because even George made reference to it later on. But it's like, oh, things are working out for you on that front. You're supposed to be stealing those coins, and she tries to, but the lights flip back on because she wasn't in position like she should have been. But it's like, hey, things are looking up for her. But we never did find out who she's working for. Obviously, her boss is there, but it's like, okay, are we going to find out she works for the Hudsons? Or are we going to find out that she works for the Marvins? So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening in that regard. My brain immediately goes down a lane. I'm like, I hope we don't end up finding the fact is that she's actually like secretly a Marvin herself, and now just complicate the whole thing between her and Bess, especially because Bess thinks she's a Marvin, so I hope we don't go down that route, because I think that would just kind of suck for Bess. It's like, oh, you found someone you love, and then it just complicates things, but we'll see. but they get kicked out, but that's just because Owen had their back and simply had them leave. So things could have gotten worse and could have gotten ugly if it wasn't for Owen, which I even love that moment. He's like, Nicholas, and both Nick and Nancy at the same time were like, that's not his name. But nevertheless, I guess you would immediately jump to that because it's like, well, Nick is part of his last name, and just everyone just calls him that, but that's not his name. But regardless, I just thought that was kind of interesting. But it turns into a thing of Nancy and Ryan. Like, Ryan's there with Lucy, and he's seeing her look the way she is. I'm like, there was actually a connection there. You wouldn't have killed Lucy because you actually liked her, didn't you? I thought it was like, oh, you straight up loved her. And they're making out and everything, but Nancy gets there and sees Lucy for who she really is, as the ghost. And it's like, oh, it's connected to the ring. So I was wondering, is that why she was so mad about the ring? Because it's like, we had something, and it's just your family potentially was connected to my murder. So it just feels like any woman that's close to you ends up dying. But Lucy does point out the fact is that her murder is what led to Tiffany's murder, because I guess Tiffany was unveiling some stuff she shouldn't have been. So obviously, whatever happened to Lucy is connected. Is Tiffany looking into the Hudson family ended up being what led to her death. So it might not even just be the Hudson family. There might be some Marvin stuff in there, but you lean more towards the Hudsons because they're top suspect number one. But now, Ryan admits the fact is he wasn't even home when Lucy died. He was sent off to boarding school. But the fact of the matter is he kept asking Lucy what was wrong, but she never told him because I guess she didn't want to rock his world like that. I mean, to be fair, we never got the other side of the conversation, finding out what his mom said to her all those years ago. Like, that's something only between her and Lucy. So, which even Nancy confronted Mrs. Hudson, which she kind of made it clear of like, oh yeah, like people kind of get killed over stuff like that, huh? The fact of the matter is, almost kind of referencing the fact is like, yeah, your family, you keeping stuff to yourself should come natural to you. It kind of comes in your family. And Nancy's like, what the hell does that mean? So, but later on, she kind of gets more understanding of it because, like, he understood, like, when his mom, all she would ever say is she handled it. But when it came to handling stuff, the person they go to was Carson. And now it's back to her being like, because I think for a point, Nancy kind of let it. I thought that might be another reason why she was kind of keeping this a lot close to the vest, why she wasn't letting anyone know about this, because her family might be involved. And she's very tight-lipped when it comes to her family, especially her mom. But now it turns into the situation of, like, no, it might not be, because now it's back to, it might be the case. Like, she probably put that aside, being like, oh, maybe it isn't what I think it is. Because she hasn't circled back to that for a while. But now it's like, wait, my dad was involved. He was kind of the person who helped solve stuff like that. Now it's all going to trail back to what she saw all those years ago. Once again, that dress, the chest that her dad and mom dug up. The dude, her forensic guy, ended up calling and talked about the fact is he found hairs or like some samples, some connected to Lucy, another connected to a female. She immediately thinks, oh, it's got to be tied to Mrs. Hudson. My mind immediately goes, it's tied to Nancy's mom. And obviously that's going to send, because she's already spiraling a little bit, but if she finds out her mom is connected to this in any shape or form, which she kind of subconsciously knows, but she's not really making those connections yet. But when she does, it's going to send her flying because like her mom was her hero. Like, especially having lost her mom now, it's going to make her go like, wait, did I even know my mom at all? I thought she was this good person, and it turns out she was connected to all of this too. Once again, this spirals back to the whole thing of like, she made Carson promise never do business with the Hudsons again, because that was a line that they crossed lines before, but I think that the Lucy thing was the line that broke the camel's back. Well, you get what I was trying to say with that. So there's that. She tries to make it up with the group because it's like, yeah, they tried to steal something, but they failed through. And it's like, Nick's like, yeah, it's my fault. You guys could have gotten hurt. But they were like, no, we were in this together. Like, we're a team. But obviously that's a complicated thing now because like Nancy comes back, but she's like, hey, I got the coins. Which is like, hey, that's cool. But, yeah, and then she's, bringing it up to, you can tell, like, Nick has kind of had enough. Because she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, the fact of the matter is, yeah, Lucy's death is connected to Tiffany's death. And it's all kind of connected to Marvin, the Hudsons, and all this. But she kind of leaves him hanging a little bit, and seeing her with Owen. And even though she's telling Owen, it's like, I've got eyes for someone else, like the mechanic. It's just like, he has really good cheekbones, because that was a thing they had joked about earlier in the episode. But obviously from the outside, you see Nick kind of getting a little jealous, which we see the coins activating. So it seems like, okay, so maybe it's just like, okay, they're the enemy, or maybe there's something else spiritually attached to maybe another ghost. Maybe not. Or maybe it's kind of like a ghost reacting to like the jealousy or anger or, disappointment that Nick is feeling that they're triggering upon. I don't know. Either way, some very interesting things are going to go down going forward. So I'm very interested to see where this all ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.